what are like the big things on the minds of these institutional stakeholders? What are the really big things they're either worried about or that are top of mind for them that either need to be demystified or that you're spending time educating them on?
It's a few things. So first, I'll caveat by saying everything is high level as it should be because people need to understand blockchains. Like people are now starting to understand AI. 2 years ago, no one would know what an LM is. Now that's a very, very common, it's just common lingo. Blockchains are in that transition period where they're going to become common lingo, where people understand blockchains power the financial economy and then eventually the broader digital economy. But with that, we're still at the tip of the iceberg. People want to use blockchain technology responsibly. And so the first foray is tokenization. It's really understanding what tokenization means and what it unlocks, because there's a right way and wrong way of doing tokenization. And there's a way that you can tokenize assets where it's actually more cumbersome to access them. And that's actually creating additional layers on top of the existing financial system. And that's how a lot of tokenization was done last cycle. I think now people are looking a lot more constructively, saying, how do we tokenize assets natively? How do we natively represent assets on blockchains so you can actually unlock utility and unlock access? And so that's a big area that everyone's focusing on. What's the right way to do tokenization? The second thing too is how do we comply with different regulatory regimes and different regulatory jurisdictions and still use this whole blockchain ecosystem? That's why the layer two architecture keeps coming up, because it really is the only way for institutions to actually have their own fully customized ecosystem, but still enjoy the benefits of global blockchain distribution. So educating about layer twos and helping institutions understand and even think about constructing their own layer twos is another huge focus. And then the third thing is blockchains have historically been, everything's been public. So you can see all money movement everywhere. And that's just a non-starter for any actual real adoption. So as we get to institutional world and even onboarding the masses in retail, just like we wouldn't show our bank accounts every time we do a transaction, people should not need to show their entire financial life story every time we do a transaction. So privacy. So but we've been not only talking a lot about privacy, but at the end of the day, it's turning out that we need to invent a lot of the future primitives that people will use to actually have compliant privacy, to have customizable privacy. So we're doing that too. And yeah, to zoom out of all of it, we're past the education moment. We're now at the show me moment. So we've just stepped in and Etherealize realized that we can teach everyone, but we also have to build a lot of the tools that are going to accelerate adoption. So we're doing that, focus on tokenization, layer twos, and privacy.
Just for folks that may be less familiar with like some of the folks that you will rub elbows with to try to not only evangelize, Ethereum, but also really, bring some of this like kind of show me component that you just talked about. Who's typically like your champion or like the constituency that you're spending the most time with as it relates to maybe the financial institution category? Is it, as an example, a newly created head of digital assets as an example, or is it a bunch of different functions within the financial institution because of the integrated nature of sort of the back end of all of this?
It seems like a cop-out answer, but it's really all of the above. And the reason is because banks are so big and asset managers are so big. They are gigantic institutions, are almost like governments in themselves. You have to appeal to a lot of different stakeholders. So the good part is most banks and soon all banks will have digital assets teams and functions. So that's they all have mandates to see how they can integrate blockchain across all parts of the bank. So that's one line of entry. For asset managers, you have people that manage portfolios, and portfolio management is much easier to do when it's all represented on a blockchain and everything's digitized than manually through what we were talking about earlier, the multitudes of Excel spreadsheets that don't link together and old COBOL systems. So putting all that on a blockchain, it actually does make the portfolio management function a lot easier. So that's what a lot of asset managers like. Operations too. No one wants to overspend on operations. So blockchains end up being an operations layer and a huge upgrade that you can plug into. So that's another angle. And then trading desks, like you work in commodities, going to a commodity trading desk and saying that this is how we can settle trades digitally instead of physically using a tokenized representation, that resonates pretty well too. So it really is the full spectrum from digital assets to C-level to operations team to tradings team to back office teams. There's something in it for all of them. And that's why I think blockchain is such a positive sum technology, because it really does benefit everyone. there isn't really a loser, because people like to say jobs will be cut, but no, actually, it'll probably create more commerce because you can bring more assets into this digital world. More things can trade, more things can be structured. I think just like people think AI is going to cut jobs, but it'll actually just increase productivity and create more jobs. I think the exact same thing about blockchains. It's literally going to, by an order of magnitude, the trading velocity and access is going to multiply, and the ability to structure products is going to multiply, and it's going to unlock new revenue lines. And that's the thing that's really landing with financial institutions. They realize they're going to make more money by integrating blockchains.
I'm curious, there's sort of the infrastructure behind the infrastructure, right? And I'm curious about, the infrastructure layer that supports Ethereum in terms of, validators and so forth that really make the blockchain go. And how important that is, not only to, the network itself, but then also when you think about the framing for some of the, institutional users that you spend time with, how much emphasis gets put on that, as it relates to sort of the core infrastructure constituencies for Ethereum. How do you think about that and their importance?
I think it's the most important thing. I think that it's table stakes to have a maximally decentralized network. And the reason is because Wall Street players are greedy in a good way. Right? Greed is good, right? So they don't want to use a platform that other people control. And so, I mean, I got an amazing opportunity earlier this year to testify in front of Congress about the Clarity Act. And one thing that we noted in our testimony was that Ethereum is the only ecosystem that is accessible to all, but it's owned by nobody. You can't point to a central point of failure. And because of that, you have the resilience and the uptime. Because there isn't anyone owning the chain, other L1s are very concentrated in a few data centers, or they have very few nodes, and it's pretty easy to capture those. Ethereum can't be. It's as broadly decentralized as a blockchain can be. So because of that, the counterparty risk on Ethereum for institutions and banks to use it is the lowest out of any ecosystem by far. And as we know, the financial system is based on minimizing counterparty risk. The whole reason the financial crisis happened is because of counterparty risk. So when you frame it that way, it's decentralization is table stakes because decentralization means security. And it is a little ironic. The more centralized systems, retail users, the people don't really care about counterparty risk because they're just used to having a trusted third party. They've used those pragmatically, but the people that actually value decentralization but most are the Wall Street institutional players. So